Well, you
a
know,
small town.
The whole Mexican film industry has changed enormously since 2000. It was, you know, I don't know any of these people. It was Perros Amos and Lost Dogs, and I worked with Rodrigo and Rodrigo Prieto in about 2000 at the beginning there. I worked with him on Alexander in 2003, then Comandante, Wall Street, Money Never Sleeps, and a few other, and South of the Border, what am I saying? South of the Border, yes, Sud de la Frontera. So Rodrigo's played a big part of my life, and Inarritu is very talented, as is Lubinsky, and Cuarón, and who's the other one? There's so Toro, Guillermo del Toro. Yeah, such a. It wasn't all there. This is all expounded, and I know the festival is very involved with promoting young filmmakers. What's next? I guess this next wave is even going to be more dangerous. But right now they're at the top of the game.
I'm glad you say that. Actually, for us it's very inspiring to have a filmmaker like you with such a prolific career, and now with Snowden, you know, a film that is it's still questioning power, making the right questions, and a responsibility that I think we all have as democratic societies. You're just portraying a crime, in this case committed by a government, right? And what important moment to think about government, especially now what happened 2 days ago. What is your...
It's a big question. You're asking the whole thing. But first about Snowden, you know, what he did was very courageous. He was saying that the United States broke the law, constitutional law of the United States, by illegally surveilling not only all its citizens, but frankly the whole world. The whole world, not only people, but governments spying on allies as well as supposed enemies, stealing corporate espionage data, banking data, what they call data mining. For those of you who know, data mining is serious, and also it brings on drone warfare and it brings on cyber warfare. You use information in any way possible. The United States now has achieved total dominance of both cyberspace, sea, land, air, space itself, and underwater. The cable, tapping into all the cabling systems, getting all the information it can. There was no reason for this, and there's no law that allows it. Now, Snowden was saying, look, if you're talking about terrorism, make it targeted surveillance, and we use that term in the film, targeted surveillance. It makes sense. That's the way you catch terrorists, by human signals and also by SIGINT, by signals itself. And they're quite capable of catching anybody. The terrorists, on the basis that the terrorists might be talking on an open line, open source like that, is crazy to think that you need to listen in on everybody. There's no reason for it. The only reason it exists, as Snowden says in the film, is for global and social control of societies. Now look to Mexico, for example. You're one of the most listened in on countries in the world. You've had CIA here, heavily involved on all the transmissions since the 1960s, 50s, even in the 1940s. Mexico cannot move in any direction without being watched by the United States. Your elections, we've hacked into all your elections, and it's been known. So this situation is worldwide. In the movie, Snowden is talking about Japan, and he says, we asked them to tap their citizens, this is in 2008, and they refused because it was against their laws, they had ethics. But we went ahead and tapped them anyway, and not only did we tap them, but in the case that they were no longer our allies one day, we implanted malware viruses into all their civilian infrastructure of importance, their power stations, their grids, their railroad stations, their dams, and so forth. So if Japan it starts to go the other way and joins China, let's say, against us, there is a price to pay. To be an ally of the United States is a very dangerous thing for Mexico, for Brazil, for every country in Europe. And this is what's going on. This is a game for power, worldwide, Game of Thrones, if you want. This is the Game of Thrones. And the United States is very good at it, very soft, very manipulative, soft power, doing it quietly. No big deal, no wars as much as possible. but sometimes things happen. If you tap Brazil to the degree that they've tapped Brazil, you're going to know everything about Petrobras, the oil company. You're going to know everything about the banking, about the scandals, the corruption. And what comes out 2, 3, 4 years later? It comes out in the Dilma Rousseff scandal. And Dilma Rousseff is suddenly removed because she's a leftist government in Latin America. These things always have consequences. Ukraine, Turkey, Iraq, Syria, Libya. It doesn't end. It doesn't end, and it makes the world much more dangerous unless we have treaties with each other and respect each other's regimes. Mexico be Mexico, Russia be Russia, Korea be Korea, Iran be, and so on. Live and let live. This is what's at stake. So the world is going to become much more dangerous, much more as hostage to the United States, because the United States really wants complete social control of the world. It wants everybody to adopt one algorithm, which is Google or whatever. It's a U.S. algorithm. They don't want to allow other countries to have their own systems, their cultures. This is a fundamental error. That's what the movie is really about. I'm sorry to make it long, but this is what it's really about. It's about Mexico having its own film culture, but on a bigger scale, it's really about where the power lies.
No, the borders are blurring, I think, if you talk about cyber war and all that. And my question was also intended to what changes now, that such amount of power now with a recent election that is changing many things, obviously.
Well, that's a more specific thing that happened a few days ago. I don't think anyone knows what's going to happen. I think that's kind of interesting time because everybody is so terrified of Trump. They've said that all over Europe, I know that, and everywhere in the world I've heard this story. Everyone, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? It'll probably not be quite dramatic as that. I think it'll probably be consolidate and it'll be more conservative at first than we think. There's a lot of restraint being practiced on him. You also have the media, the same media that took such a beating is already at it, trying to tell him what to do. So it's really hard for, I would hate to be a rebel, but he is a rebel, and I don't think, it might be, I think certainly in some areas we can look optimistically that he's a smart man and he doesn't want war, and I was worried very much that the administration under Hillary Clinton was leaning towards a neoconservative approach to Russia and to China and to Iran. So looking for proxy spots to put pressure on, especially in Syria. And that would have led to a very difficult situation because I don't think the Russians are going to back down on their ally in Syria or much less on their own country, because I think Hillary Clinton's ultimate game was regime change in Russia. That is the big game for her. And then regime change in China, because China scares them and it's a much bigger power than Russia in terms of economics. So that's at stake. And with Trump, I hope that he has the good sense, because he's a businessman. He says he wants to make deals, the art of the deal, that he'll try to make a deal with Russia as well as China. And I think that'd be better for everybody than this present situation of uncertainty and cyber warfare. But at the same time, he was a man who called for the execution of Edward Snowden and more surveillance. So I'm confused, as many are people, and we don't know what's going to happen. But let's hope that he's a good businessman at this time.